19. Normally we do roll call right after this, but in this case we have a new Planning and Zoning Commissioner to introduce, Ms. Carolyn Parker. She's from Tallahassee, and she'll give us a little experience about that area as well. So this is good. We have a little smorgasbord on this commission, so I appreciate that. Madam Chair, please call roll.
Martha Casabon. Here. Pug Lauren. Here. Todd Richard. Here. Bernie Willie. Here. Barry Baggert. Here. Jimmy Davis.
Here.
Patrick Fitzmaurice. Dave Doherty. Here. Kirk Drum. Ron Randolph. Here. Carolyn Parker. Here. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Please silence all phone calls, or phones, please, devices. If you don't like the decision of this commission, we have appeal cards, I believe. If you haven't already took them up, we have more up here if you need them. We also have speaker cards up here in case you want to speak about a case. We'll grant 10 minutes for each side and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Please stand for the invocation by Commissioner Randolph and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Lauren.
All of our lives and in all of our lives. We thank you for each and every one of our families, our homes. We ask that you continue to bless us. Bless this parish and its government, its leaders, its employees. And Lord, we ask a special blessing upon this commission. We thank you for our new commissioner, Ms. Parker. We thank you for those that's in the audience, that's concerned citizens. And Lord, help us to make the decision that's in the best interest of all. In all these blessings we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If the commissioners have reviewed the minutes from last month, March 6th, I'll accept a motion or approval. Commissioner Doherty. Commissioner Doherty makes a motion to approve the minutes from last month. Commissioner Baggert. I have a second by Commissioner Baggert. Any more discussion? On that discussion, I do have a comment on the minutes for case number 2. I believe I said nay in that motion and not yay. Just please correct.
Duly noted.
Thank you. On that, Commissioner Baggert, you have a Commissioner Baggert, do you want to speak on anything? No. Okay, thank you. All right, with that being said, let's make a motion to approve by Commissioner Doherty and a second by who? By Commissioner Baggert. Please vote with the correction.
Ms. Park, can y'all show? Okay, it shows. All right.
Minutes have approved. Staff, any postponement of cases tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Zoning case, the first one on the agenda. First one on the agenda. The first case on the agenda, number 1, 2018-1188-ZC, as well as number 8, 2019-1383-ZC, and Mr. Paul Marone is here to address the commission.
Okay. Ms. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Paul Marone on behalf of the petitioner, items 1 and 8. As you might have seen in the staff comments, there were some concerns that the staff had We need some additional time in which to meet with Ms. Lambert as well as some of the engineers to work through those. So we'd ask that the matter be tabled until your next available meeting.
Thank you. Okay, I'll read those cases to postpone. It's 2018-1188 ZC. The existing zoning is A1 and Highway Commercial 2. Proposed zoning is A4 and Highway Commercial 2 and PUD development with a major amendment to the PUD overlay. Acreage is 70.9 acres. Petitioner is Art Lancaster. The owner is Delval Inc., Albert J. Vallon, and the location is on the west side of LA Highway 59 south of Dove Park Road and Campbell Avenue. South 25, Section 7 South, Range 11 East, Ward 4, District 5, and Council District 5. Is anybody in public is opposed to this postponement? Okay, if not, I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Baggert? Commissioner Baggert makes a motion to postpone. Anyone else? To the next meeting for 1 month. Commissioner Doherty? Commissioner Doherty seconds that to postpone for 1 month. Any more discussion? If not, please vote.
Motion passed.
Motion passed. We'll go to case number 8. Also, the motion to postpone is 2019-1383 ZZ. Existing zoning is A1. Proposed zoning is A4. An additional 28.9 acres. Petitioner is Joan Fussell. Paul Marone. Owner is Delval Inc., Albert J. Vallon. Parcel located on the west side of LA Highway 59 South 25, Township 7 South, Range 11 East, Ward 4, District 5, Council District 5. Anyone in opposition of this postponement? If not, I'll bring it back to the commissioner. Commissioner Doherty.
There we go. Now we got the mic on. Motion to postpone to the next meeting, next month's meeting.
Commissioner Doherty makes a motion to postpone for 1 month. Commissioner Randolph.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Randolph. Any more discussion? If not, please vote.
The motion is passed to postpone.
Okay, thank you. And there's no more postponements, correct? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move up a case. I'm going to move up case number 5. I believe, is there anybody in the audience here for case number 5? Okay, thank you. I'm going to move up case number 5. Let's read that now. 2019-1376 ZC. The existing zoning is A2 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is I1 Industrial District. The acreage is 5.02 acres. Petitioner is Wendy Jared. The owner is the same, Wendy Jared. The location is on the northwest corner of LA Highway 41 and Grantham Road in Bush, Section 15, Township 5 South, Range 13 East, Ward 5, District 6, Council District 6. Staff, comments?
The petitioner is requesting to change the zoning from A2 to I1 Industrial District. The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential and agricultural uses. Although the site is located along a state highway, staff does not see any compelling reason to recommend approval, considering the surrounding area is for the most part developed with single-family residences and undeveloped land. At this time, staff would like to recommend denial of the request.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Please come up and state your name and address.
I have copies of all the photos here for everyone. My name is Wendy Jared, and I'm here to speak on our request to change the zoning for my property.
What's your address, ma'am?
It's 81100 Daisy Drive, Bush, Louisiana.
Thank you.
Okay, I've owned this property in Bush since July 2010. I've tried to sell it in the past with no luck. Although I may have been born and raised in New Orleans, I first moved to Bush in 1994 and was here almost every weekend for 4 years prior to that while I was dating my now ex-husband. We lived here for a few years before moving to Pearl River, but still had family here. I officially moved back to Bush in 2015 when I married Scott. I have worked with some of you on construction projects and also as an elections commissioner. For those who don't know me, I have a civil engineering degree, multiple certifications. I'm a LEED accredited professional with a specialty in building design and construction, a Louisiana registered engineering training, a notary public with statewide jurisdiction, and the owner of After Hours Notary Service. I work full-time for a commercial general contractor as a project engineer. I'm also the president-elect of the National Association of Women in Construction, NAWIC Education Foundation, and I'm a past president of the North Shore chapter of NAWIC. Scott started me a tow truck a week before we met. I've been there through the good times and the bad. The look of the property that he rents in Bogalusa is not the image we want to portray to the public. It got us started. We went from 2 trucks to 6 in 5 years. Scott is a former St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's deputy and an Army veteran. He is very meticulous about things. He finds his drivers if his trucks are not kept clean. Appearance is everything to him. We want to improve the business, and to do this, we need a new location. Dealing with a landlord that will not fix the conditions of the property means it is time to find a new location. We have a roof that leaks, a septic tank that is full of mud, doors that have huge gaps around them that let in bugs and mice, and the list goes on. As far as the pictures of the current location that have been circulated on Facebook by the residents of Bush, let me explain. The campers and 18-wheelers belong to the man who rents out the body shop. He is not part of our company. The cars in the pictures have been there for a few years, not our choice. When we receive a call from the Washington Parish Sheriff's Office or the City of Bogalusa to tow a car, we bring it to the yard. These are called non-consensual tows. It stays in the yard until it is picked up by the owner within the time frame governed by the State of Louisiana Public Service Commissioner or the following chain of event occurs. At 10 days, a notice is sent by registered mail to the vehicle's registered owner and lien holders stating the amount owed and the location of the vehicle. At 45 days, a final notice is sent by registered mail to the vehicle's registered owner and lien holders stating the amount owed and the location of the vehicle. At 55 days, all documents are mailed to the Office of Motor Vehicles located in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Then we wait on the Office of Motor Vehicles to issue a permit to sell title. Once the title permit to sell is received, the vehicle is fixed as needed to sell. If not repairable, the vehicle is crushed. The procedures were followed for filing for the titles. However, the company we were using to file the paperwork for us was flooded in August of 2010 Baton Rouge flood. We have since purchased software that allows us to file the paperwork ourselves. We had to start the process of sending letters over again. We would love to get rid of these cars. They are doing us no good and now causing such negativity towards our business. We are waiting on the Office of Motor Vehicles. We have a total of 22 vehicles in storage and are currently waiting on 12 titles dating back as far as April 2016. The filing cost is approximately $150 per vehicle, and we have had to do this twice for these vehicles. Last year, we brought 46 cars to the yard. Our business is towing, not storing vehicles. It costs us money to store them, and we never recuperate the money. Please note that only 1% of our work comes from police and sheriff's office calls. The other 99% comes from working for insurance companies doing roadside assistance. This is an accurate figure based on the annual report that we have to file yearly with the state of Louisiana. I finalized the report last week. Last year, our business took in over $600,000. Also, we will not be on the police logs when we relocate to Bush, thus eliminating the multiple stored cars. The cars that would come to the yard would only be there a few days. Mia Tow Truck is a leader in the towing industry. We are the first towing service in the state of Louisiana to use a paperless ticket system. All of our trucks are equipped with tom-toms, which the dispatcher sends the call to, and it directs the driver where to go. All information is entered into this system. Trooper Pike, who is with the Louisiana State Police Towing and Recovery Division, has allowed us to test the system for the state. Our little towing company is also the #1 service provider for Geico in the state and one of the top 5 providers in the country. Additionally, Mia Tow Truck is the #1 service provider for almost every insurance company within 65 miles of Bogalusa, Slidell, and Hammond. We do have a small repair shop. We sell a few tires here and there and work on a few cars a month. The mechanic is basically here for the times that we need the tow trucks worked on. If the trucks are not working, our employees are not making money. I have spent my fair share of nights sweeping up the shop and working on trucks with Scott before we had a mechanic on board. The main goal of having a mechanic shop is to offset the costs of having a mechanic on duty 5 days a week to take care of our trucks. Tow trucks rarely come to the office. Tow trucks mainly come to our office to drop off paperwork and for maintenance. The only tow truck you will see at our office daily is Scott's truck, a 2018 Dodge Ram 3500 dually with a wheel lift. Other than that, we have the mechanic and 1 to 2 ladies that dispatch and do billings. I drop by in the evening sometime and would come there to do notary work, as this would be the office for my notary business as well. Being in the construction industry for 25 years, I know the strict requirements for building in St. Tammany Parish. I deal with it daily. They even approve what trees can be cut, landscaping, and the type of sign that can be installed. We want a nice building that is pleasant to the eye. The entire 5 acres would not be cleared in order to keep a buffer zone between our property and the neighbors. We also don't want people to see the vehicles from the highway and stop and ask if they are for sale. The storage yard would be fenced in. This is a requirement of the Louisiana State Police Tow and Recovery Division. Tow truck businesses are governed by the rules of the Louisiana State Police Tow and Recovery Division. We plan to have a storage yard 150 feet by 150 feet, and it will be located behind trees to hide it from the view from the road. The building and storage yard will also have security cameras, as the current location has. The building will be a 50 by 60 metal building, and the front of the building will have a brick and/or stucco facade. The roll-up doors would not face the road. As far as concerns for having a junkyard in your neighborhood, there are parish ordinances for keeping your property clean. Unfortunately, not all citizens of Bush follow this. I live in Bush and drive down my road every day and pass a really trashy area to get to my house. And there's some pictures of it down here. If at any time you feel the property is a junkyard, please feel free to call St. Tammany Parish Code Enforcement or go online to file a complaint. Scott went with Mr. Tanner to talk to him about the desire to build a building for Mia Tow Truck. When Scott went with him, he pulled up in a tow truck with Mia Tow Truck lettering as required by law, wearing a Mia Tow Truck shirt with his name, also required by law, and discussed his desire to move the business to this location. Mr. Tanner was all on board with the idea after meeting with Scott. Now it is being said that Scott never stated that he wanted to move the towing business there. That is his business. Of course it was mentioned. We proceeded to have the property subdivided based on the meeting between Scott and Mr. Tanner. This involved creating a mini subdivision at a cost of over $800 according to St. Tammany Parish, and I had to go before the board to get approval to subdivide my own property because it had a parish road running down the middle of it. We also had surveying costs. So now we saved enough money to get to this point, again over $800. Had Mr. Tanner advised us that he was not in favor of this, we would have saved the nearly $2,000 that has been spent to date. We considered building on my property based on what types of buildings are on Highway 41 in the 1 mile headed to Highway 41. As you can see in the pictures, one side of Highway 41 has the library, community center, the AT&T building, an abandoned building that used to be a restaurant, the sheriff's substation, a church, and some nice residential and some not so nice property. On the other side of Highway 41, there's an abandoned grocery store, an abandoned house, the parish maintenance barn, a church, and some nice residential property, and some not so nice residential property.
I'll give you another 2 minutes.
Thank
Go ahead.
you. There are 2 residences on Grantham Road. Our neighbor directly behind us, whose driveway is partially on our property, and one at the end of Grantham Road. I own the property directly across Grantham Road from the proposed site, and I also have a half interest in 5.6 acres across the highway from the property. My daughter's grandmother owns the property across the highway as well. It was my daughter's great-grandmother, Bonnie Christian, who sold the land that the library, community center, and baseball field are located on. She worked at the library as well. To be good neighbors, we will not bring the body shop, which would change the zoning from industrial to commercial highway. It should be noted when Scott spoke with Mr. Tanner, he asked about changing the zoning to commercial highway. It was Mr. Tanner that advised Scott, in order to have a body shop, the zoning would have to be industrial highway. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who want to speak against this rezoning? I have several cards here. Looks like about 5. Kelsey Humphreys. Yes, ma'am.
My husband has lived in the Bush
Ms.
area.
Humphreys, can state your name and your address, please?
My name's
for the
Kelsey
record.
Humphreys, and I live on 81194 Charles Road.
Okay.
My husband has lived in the Bush area for over 27 years. Several years ago, he opened his heart and way of living in the peaceful Bush. We had our first date here, we were engaged here, we were married here, and here we chose to live and begin a family. Our first child will have her first birthday next month at our home. We are a very outdoor-loving family. We hunt, we fish, we have a big yard for goats, a couple of dogs, and a pond. A big yard that is enjoyed for celebrations and holiday gatherings. A pond that we relax by with family and have the younger family members over to enjoy the fishing. Beautiful oak trees for our kids to grow up in, like I did as a child. The yard, the pond, the trees, all this along the fence borders the property development in question today. I understand that people need to make a living. I live 30 minutes from my place of employment so that I can get away from such as this. A less residential area may be more appropriate for a tow and body shop or any commercial developments. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you see that this area stays a nice, peaceful area to raise not just my current family, but our future generations.
Thank you. Mr. George Monstead?
Hello, I'm George Monstead.
Your address, please?
100 Bayberry Drive, Covington, Louisiana.
Thank
My
you.
parents live on L. Crawford Road. I don't know if you got these photos of Mia tow trucking. Those were taken yesterday. That's the current business. Okay, my name is George Monstead. I am the son of Charles and Winkie Monstead. I've had a place on L. Crawford Road for about 20 years. L. Crawford Road is about 100 yards long and across the highway from the proposed site. I have also been appraising residential real estate in the parish for over 20 years, so I know the impact a site like this would have on the neighborhood, and it is not good. Since the time my grandmother bought the place and passed it on to my parents, my brother and sisters and all of our children, as well as numerous friends, visit the place on a regular basis. This area has always been beautiful and desirable and a fun place to visit for everyone. It is a quiet, tranquil, beautiful, and quaint area of the parish. I have spoken with many of the people in that area over the past few days, and they all oppose this change of zoning, and for all the reasons I just mentioned, and they support everything I'm going to explain to you 100%. None of them would like to see a towing body mechanic shop junkyard when coming and going from their residence. I showed them the picture of the Jared's shop in Bogalusa and what they would be getting into if they decided to stay home and not get involved. It is not a scare tactic, it is a fact, and I told them this is very real. I told them they could stay home and skip the 2-hour meeting, but they will kick themselves for many years to come. I told them it is similar to if you don't vote, you can't complain. Many of the people have been here for 30 to 50 years, like the Granthams and Nelsons. I even learned that members of the Crown families were born here on Sticker Road and have been there all their lives for 70 to 75 years. I even spoke to people that have finally saved enough money to move out of their mobile home and build a new house on their land. but now they're considering just moving. Some of the people I am talking about live on Sticker Road, directly across from this future junkyard. Changing this to industrial zoning is the epitome of spot zoning. This area is almost all A2, and to change it to industrial is not just jumping 2 to 3 or even 5 zoning classes, but 19. Yes, 19 zoning classes will have to be jumped to appease what the Jarretts would like to do to the neighborhood and ultimately the deeply rooted community, all because they don't want to pay what others are paying for the industrial sites. The next industrial zone site is 3 miles south near Highway 435. There is a great deal of industrial zone property for sale in Slidell and Pearl River, but understandably, people want to buy cheap residential land and try to get it converted to commercial or industrial. It will save them a great deal of money at everyone else's expense. In social media, the Jarretts explain that they are doing this because their current landlord will not fix certain things at their current locations, such as roof, driveways, doors, septic tanks, etc. I totally get wanting to move for that reason, completely. But as you will see in the printout from the Secretary of State, the Jarretts own the Mia tow truck business situated at 14263 Highway 21, which is what you saw in the photos. The Jarretts are trying to get people to believe that they are tenants and victim of a cheap and lazy landlord. But guess who the landlord is that owns the land where the business is, according to the parish assessor that I printed out yesterday. Mia Tow Truck is the owner of the location. In short, Mia Tow Truck owns the land and the Jarretts own Mia Tow Truck. In other words, they are the landlord that won't fix the problems they have disclosed in social media and to you today. They themselves are the reasons they have to move. The social media I'm referring to is on Facebook. Since they posted the comments I am referring to, 6 of their 244 friends on Facebook liked what they said they were doing. One of those was Mrs. Jarrett, so actually 5 people they know actually liked what they were doing. Behind the subject property in question on Highway 41 is the Bogachita River. I'm very curious to learn what the Army Corps of Engineers and environmentalists would think of an industrial site having its runoff of gasoline, diesel, antifreeze, battery acid, transmission fluid, motor oil, paint, rust, lead, various chemicals, etc., all seeping into the ground and or running eventually into the river and community's water table. Well, actually, it would have to run directly through Mr. Telly's backyard and past his pool and patio to get to the river. But it's not far. Mr. Telly's here. Everyone around here is on well water, and it tastes good. It really does. It's clean. It would be a shame and a massive undertaking to have to start dealing with the pollution of our drinking well water supply. If this were to change to industrial, everything that is good about this area will go by the wayside. Property values will drop, desirability and demand will go down. Personally, I feel it would become depressing. It just would. That's my feeling. That's my personal feeling. All of these people will have to tell all of the people visiting them to take a left at the junkyard, or I live right across the street from the junkyard, or I'm the driveway right after the junkyard. Yes, I do keep saying junkyard, because everyone in this room related to this issue knows that that's what we are ultimately dealing with. It is important to me that you know that I have visited many properties in the vicinity of the subject property, and honestly, there definitely is pride of ownership with everyone in this room behind me. People really do take care of their places. As you can see in the photos, this is the business the Jarretts would like to move in front of my parents and everyone else's home. And the Jarretts don't mind if their junkyard is the first thing the local residents see when they leave or come home. In social media, the Jarretts stated that they spent
Mr.
2
Onstead,
months.
just to let you know, you only have 3 minutes left
Right.
for all these other people to talk to. Go ahead.
The Jarretts stated that they spent 2 months and a great deal of money and filled 2 commercial dumpsters to get the place to look nice. They spent 2 months to make it look like that. Imagine how it looked before. And they've only been there 5 years. They want to occupy this place across the street indefinitely. I feel certain that they cleaned up the purpose of this issue. Otherwise, they probably never would have. They do not want to build this new industrial site just to be there for 5 years, when we're like 15, 20, or 50. Can you imagine what the place would look like? There is no rule that can make them clean up if the locals don't like what they have to see every day. Do you think they are going to clean up every 5 years? I don't. Who would have to look at it, hear it, smell it, or even taste it? Me and the deeply rooted community that sits behind me, not the Jareds. They do live in Bush, but on the other side of town by the high school. If this were to be zoned commercial, the Jareds could use a small part of this land for their use and sell the remainder. The zoning limits of industrial zoning are not a pretty sight for a residential area like this. As well, this would set precedents for future zoning changes in the immediate and surrounding areas. The impact of the neighborhood would be huge, better said, devastating. Also, that doesn't matter. They said they don't want to store cars there. In social media, they say that they'll store them behind trees. They don't have to keep those trees up. Everybody knows that. They want store frontage and visibility. That's what any commercial business wants, visibility. They're not going to leave the trees up. I'll finish with this. One more thing. This business would be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, just like it is now. Why would they want to change it? They wouldn't. Or do you think they would change it to be nice to us? I don't think so. At the end of the day, it does not matter what he claims he will do differently in front of all these people's homes than what they do now. Once the Jareds get the zoning they want, nothing can stop them from doing what they want within zoning rules. People can moan and complain all they want. It really won't matter. Sadly, they will just have to live with it or move. That's all.
In all fairness, I still have 3 cards left, but I see there's a Ms. Humphreys and another Mr. Monstead. So I'm going to go ahead and grant an additional 2 minutes to a Mr. Dewey Little, if he wants to come up and speak.
I am Dewey Little, and I live directly across the road of what we consider Main Street in Bush. And I have a question. If it were across the road from you people, how many of you would vote to approve this? Or if it was across the street or on the street, Main Street in your residence area, would you approve it? And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you. If Miss Marie Humphreys, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds. Sorry.
I'll be quick. I have kind of a survey here, if y'all want to see it. It shows where their property bounds my son's property, and I'm right next to my son. My name's Marie Humphreys. My husband and I live on Charles Road, 8122 Charles Road. My son Wesley, he is one of the landowners that this property bounds. If they put the buffer that they're speaking about and leave the trees and put their business behind that, it's going to be right on top of their property line. And so they will see it every day they walk outside. And, I've lived in Bush for almost 60 years, and in this part of Bush for the last 28 years. We chose Bush to be our home because it's quiet, safe, and a peaceful neighborhood, and we definitely are against any sort of commercial or industrial zoning in our community, especially right next door to us. And once one of these businesses are zoned commercial, that opens the door for more, and we're just not in agreement to that. Okay, thank you.
On that note, I think I'll go ahead and now take a rebuttal from Ms. Jared and grant her 7 minutes instead of the typical 5. Ms. Jared.
My name is Scott Jarrett. I own me a tow truck. I live at 81100 Days Drive. In reference to the way the property looks, it had been raining for 2-3 months. The ditch was full of water. It was scheduled to be cut actually the next day. It didn't get cut until Saturday or Sunday. The yard is kept weed-eated, it's kept the grass killed inside of the storage area. If you look at the pictures they gave you, only cars you see is about 22 cars that belong to me. The property does not belong to us. It belongs to Billy and Elise Bragg. It owns BM Ports in Mandeville. Why the Secretary of State puts it that way is because I pay the taxes on it because my business is there. I understand their concern, their anguish and anger, or whatever you want to call it. We don't want to trash. That's why we want out of. I've been saying since I started, I want out of Washington Parish. It's trashy. There's no money. You go to my house is the only yard, and it got cut last week before this all started, is the only yard that is cut on the street. My yard is the only yard that is cut at least twice a month, and that's 3 acres. My house is clean. There's nothing on my front porch except for a metal bench. That's it. My trucks stay clean. My trucks don't come in 24 hours, 365 days a year. My trucks are in Hammond, Slidell, and in Bogalusa. My Bogalusa truck is usually in Hammond or in Slidell. It only comes there at night to take care of police calls. When we moved to Bush, we're too far away from, the state police won't let us on because there's too many tow trucks. St. Tammany's the same thing. They have too many tow trucks. We're not getting on. There's no city police to tow for. Sun doesn't have a police department, and they use St. Tammany's logs. I understand their concern. There's nothing I can do to change your mind except for the fact that all of this started because of Jack Tanner. Jack was sheriff's deputy with me. His name, he's dead. Richard is the one that motivated this when I spoke to him. That's why we spent $2,000. I don't need industrial highway. I'm not gonna bring the body shop with me. I don't need the body shop. I can run a body shop. I'm a body man, I'm a painter. I don't wanna do any of the above. That's why I don't own a body shop. I have a small mechanic shop. We might sell 10 tires a month. We might work on 5 cars a month. That's it. I have 2 trucks broke down in my yard right now because one is being painted to make it look better. It's my oldest truck that I have. And my 2017 dropped the drive shaft last Monday. The parts will be in tomorrow to put it, and it'll be back on the road tomorrow. They're costing me $1,500, $2,000 a day to sit in my yard. They don't come to my yard. We're a family-run business. My daughter runs a shop. My son-in-law drives one of the trucks. We don't hire dope heads. We don't have drunks. I don't drink. I don't do any of that. The property behind our property, their driveway is on our driveway. And so he needs to spend the money, $15,000, to redo my property, move his driveway, and get it settled that way. Because when we had the survey done, his driveway is halfway on my property. I don't want to be this way, but I've had enough. We didn't buy property, put it there. In the divorce settlement, she got the property. For 10 years, I almost bought the property in 2012. I didn't because of the people that live on the road. Because go look at their property. Look what they have. Look down the street and see what it is. I moved to Bush in 2012. I'm from Baton Rouge.
All right.
I chose to live here.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, 2 things. First of all, the building has not been designed or laid out on the property because we have to get through this hurdle first. That would be a waste of money on our part. So for people to stand up here and say that it's going to be on their property line, that the parish wouldn't allow that anyway. And second of all, I'm just curious, how many people sitting on this board have actually been to the area in question to look at what's actually around the property? Because from what I saw, y'all got a piece of paper with a map that showed the zoning, and it showed an aerial photo of the located property with a statement saying why they wanted to deny it. But I would ask that each of you go out there and look at the things that we've presented pictures of to show you that there is more than residential stuff out there. And we are trying to bring a nice building. No, we're not going to have flashy signs and stuff like that. We are a very quiet company. You could come to our office and probably nobody's going to walk in all day long. It's that quiet, other than the phone ringing. We are very quiet to ourselves people. Like I said, our trucks don't come to the office unless they have to. That's the way we like it. If our trucks are at the office, they're not making money, and our employees aren't making money. And that's, yeah, you know, that's just the way it is. Yes, towing is a 365-day a year, 24-hour, 7 business. They are not always at the yard. Our trucks are very rarely at the yard. So,
Let me say something. The towing business is 24/7. My trucks never stop. They don't close for Christmas, Thanksgiving, or anything, because all the other record services do. My drivers make $1,500 a week after taxes. My drivers don't come to the yard. It's a waste of fuel. It's a waste of time because of the amount of calls that are done from the Bogalusa / Bush area. That's why I have all my trucks in Hammond and Slidell. The thought of 24/7, my office is by law open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. At 5 o'clock, it is closed by law. On weekends and holidays, it is closed by law, period. It's governed by Louisiana State Police. You want to come at 5:01 and get something out of your car, it's going to cost you $45 because you have to pay that to the state, me, because they charge it. It's run by the Louisiana Public Service Commission. I don't have a junkyard. I have some cars out there. I had 22 cars. That's it. And they've been there from 2016. TRPL, who used to do my paperwork, flooded in Baton Rouge. And they redid the paperwork. They quit doing it, and I had to start over.
Thank you, sir. Now we have 7 minutes rebuttal time for the opposite side, if they'd like to come up and speak.
I'm Charles Munstead. I live with my wife on L. Crawford Road, and you have heard that L. Crawford Road, and it comes out on 41. It's right across from the proposed site change, zoning change. The whole area up and down there is either agricultural and residential. You've got 3 churches, and you have several parish facilities there. But we have nothing, not remotely resembling what the Jareds want to put there. And I don't want it, and I don't know anyone in the neighborhood that wants it at all, under any circumstances. They speak a good game, but you go look at their facility up in Washington Parish, and I went up there today, and believe me, you wouldn't want it just to drive past it. So please reject the proposed change. Thank you.
I just got a couple of cards sent to me. John Alford or a Gasper Geo? Please come up. I'll get you next, sir. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Gasper Gio. My mother, Angelina Gio, my wife and I own the property 81016 Albert Road in Bush, which is one of the properties closest to the proposed properties acting for the change. My mother and father moved out in this property over 16 years ago. If everyone's familiar with the property, it's a property that's adjacent to St. Michael's Church. It's arguably one of the most beautiful, pristine properties along Highway 41. They built up this property over the years, put their heart and soul into improving it. If anyone does drive by, they'll see how the beauty of Bush and why people move out there. Being that it's next to the church, I don't know if the board probably does not know, the council does not know, but we're in early talks right now with the Archdiocese of New Orleans to expand in St. Michael's Church, an expansion that will benefit the entire community of Bush with improved church, which would mean beautification of the area and but again, it's in infant stages, but I know if this goes through, that will prevent any possibility of that economic boost to that area, a positive economic boost. I know a lot of people will think commercial and things are negative, but whenever you do a significant sized church, I think that just adds to the beauty and adds to the area. And also to the resale of any properties that are for sale for that now. My mother, we put our property up for sale over a year ago. We never had one look at the property. We've had a lot of inquiries on social media, but not one person has seen it. And it just takes a long time to sell. With an addition of an industrial complex, I think that would just prohibit any of those possible sales in the future. Thank you for your time, and we move for the rejection.
Sir? Name and address, please.
John Alford. I live on Sticker Road, 80398 Sticker Road, which is right down the street from the proposed location. I'm here because I have one concern, or one major concern, and I think the gentleman earlier touched on it, was the environmental impact this could have on the area. I know that the Pearl River Basin watershed passes through this portion of the state. Also know that from living there and having been in that area and hunted right across the street from, probably 500 yards from where the location is, that it's a very wet area. There's a ridge that runs right down the middle of Grantham Road, and on both sides of it, it falls off. I printed some pictures of topographical maps, if y'all like to look at them, to show y'all the definition of the land that's through there. We know that anytime somebody has a wreck, accident, whatever the case is, as Jared stated earlier, that the bulk of their business is from Geico. I believe they said they were the number 1 or number 5 in the state with Geico. That means that the bulk of their business is from wrecks, crashes, whatever the case may be, the loss of fluids, any one of them. I believe the gentleman mentioned earlier, battery acid, diesel, oil. Those things could impact the river that's right behind it, and the ecological damage that it could cause is unmeasurable. So without knowing the impact that it could cause, I oppose the proposal.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to speak? I have 1 minute and 55 seconds left. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Lynn Talley. I live on Grantham Road, right behind the property at 81151 Grantham Road. First of all, I know they've said that our driveway is on their road, or on their property. It's not. We've been there over 30 years, and the driveway's been that way the whole time. We have our surveys showing that. Also, it's talking about the topographical, the land. Our house is 2 blocks high in the front and 8.5 blocks high in the back. That shows the drop-off of that area right there. So we're voting against it. That's about all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Okay, I think I'll go ahead and end the discussion at this point, and I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first thing I want to mention is well, I appreciate all the talk about the business and the specifics of the business and the various ramifications. What we're looking at here is a zoning issue. And if we make this change to an I-2 zone, it's an I-2 zone for not only that business or whatever business may come in the future.
It's I-1.
Excuse me, I-1. But nevertheless, so when we look at this, while we are very keenly interested in what the owner wants to do, there's never a guarantee that that's what's going to ultimately be done, because the property, the business may move again, it could be sold, and as a result, anything that could occur in an I-1 zoning could therefore they be put there. And typically, I-1 property is more valuable and more expensive because it's tougher businesses that go there. The problem I have with this, and I'll let my other commissioners speak, but there's no compelling reason to put industrial zone land in the midst of this residential area. There may be some other old buildings that are out there that have been grandfathered in. I can't speak to that. But we look at zoning maps, we look at aerials, we do use Google. We don't all drive out there, but some of our commissioners have been out there because they're from that area. So based on what I've said just now, on the zoning issue only, I'm going to move to deny.
I have a motion to deny by Commissioner Richard. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, I want to reassure that Ms. Jarrett, it sounds like y'all are a very, very hardworking group of people, and you've worked hard to build this business. But I concur with Mr. Richard that this is a residential area, and very rarely do we ever look at putting something, industrial in that particular area because of all the things that we look at, the environmental aspect of it and everything. Also, to reassure you that I have been to the area. I was born and raised in the Lee Road area and know it very well. And a lot of those businesses that are now, for my fellow commissioners, yes, there were grocery stores and they have buildings there, but what happened when they put the bypass in, it kind of bypassed that little particular area and it didn't have as much traffic through. So some of the businesses that were there have, closed and stuff. But farther down where St. Michael's and the other the churches and all the way to Walheim and that area is really prospering, and it's a beautiful area. I concur that it is inappropriate to put this in a residential area, and I'll second the motion.
I have a second to deny the zoning change. Any more discussion? If not, I have a motion to deny by Commissioner Richard and a second by Commissioner Casabon. Please vote. And this is a motion to deny.
The motion to deny passes.
We have a motion to deny. Thank you. You can always appeal the verdict, the decision, with the council.
Could we see the vote, please? We can't see the vote.
You can't see the vote. There you go. Commissioner Doherty, did you vote? Yeah, I don't see it up there. Commissioner Lauren, did you vote? All right. Let the record reflect that everyone voted to deny.
So 10-0.
10-0. I'll grant 2 minutes for those people that would like to leave after this case. So are you showing every time?
Well, I have to press begin vote, they vote. Then, I didn't know if everybody was finished, the two that didn't show up. But then I press end vote, then it shows.
Please leave quietly.
Give me one. They're all gone. Which one?
Okay. We'll go back to the agenda, top of the agenda, case number 2. Existing zoning's A2, proposed zoning's A4A, single-family residential district. It's 2.03 acres. Petitioner is River Park Estates LLC, Corey Herberger. The owner is the same. Location is the parcel located on the west side of Sydney Drive, north of MP Planche Road, Section 18, Township 6 South, Range 11 East, Ward 3, District 3, Council District 3. Staff?
The zoning change is being requested to allow for the creation of lots 11 to 16, which will be part of River Park Estates. And I would like to point out to you that I highlighted that particular area in yellow or with a black marker, depending on the attachment that you have, to show the area that is proposed to be rezoned and the lots that are proposed to be created. And at this time, staff would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the commission, Paul Marone on behalf of River Park Estates LLC and Mr. Herberger. This is a 2.03 acre parcel, as Ms. Lambert just noted. It's along Sydney Drive, north of MP Planche Road. And Sydney Drive is part of River Park Estates. And the subject property, as Helen just noted, is highlighted on your plat, and it'll give you an idea of how this property sits in relation to River Park Estates. And in order to, I believe, understand and analyze our request this evening of the 2.03 acre parcel, you really need to understand what River Park Estates is and how the two fit together. River Park Estates is what we refer to as a subdivision of record. In other words, there was a plat filed many years ago, so the lots in River Park Estates are existing. As you look at the zoning map, you will see a zoning of A2 in that area, and so a request for A4A may seem unusual. What that zoning map doesn't tell you is that although the property is zoned, River Park Estates is zoned A2, it has lots that are basically 60 by 120, which are consistent with and similar to the A4A zoning. So the Phase 1 of River Park Estates has already been constructed. Phase 2 is in the process of being constructed. In fact, there will be a request before you as a planning commission for tentative and preliminary to go in and build out the streets in Phase 2, one of which is Sydney Drive. And so if you will look at the plat that is in your package, River Park Estates ends at the westerly right-of-way line of Sydney Drive. My client owns the property just to the west of that, and the majority of this property, if you look to the south, is a retention pond that he has created for the subdivision. Then there's a park, and then there is the property that is subject to our request. And what we are asking tonight is for rezoning to A4A to complete the puzzle, if you will. There is a piece that is missing. That is the piece that you see there. That is the piece that is subject to our request. If the request is approved, then we will be able to construct 6 lots that will be consistent with those lots in River Park Estates, and we'll finish out the development. And so with that being said, your staff has recommended approval, I believe, based on the continuity with River Park Estates, which is next door. So we would respectfully request your approval this evening of the 2.03 acres to A4A. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wants to speak against this proposed zoning? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Baggert. Commissioner Baggert makes a motion to approve. Commissioner Randolph.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Randolph. Any more discussion? If not, please vote. And this is a motion to approve.
The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. Case number 3, 2019-1371ZC. Oh, show the vote, sorry.
You got to vote first.
Okay. Everybody vote. Case number, wait a minute. I have to read the zoning. Case 2019-1371 ZC, existing zonings A1 Suburban District and Aurora Overlay. Proposed zonings A3 Suburban District and Aurora Overlay. The acreage is 2.19. The petitioner is Joy Barron. The owner is Joy Barron. Location is on the northwest corner of LA Highway 25 and C. Gotti Road, Covington, Section 36, Township 5 South, Range 10 East, Ward 2, District 3, Council District 3. Staff, your comments?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential and agricultural uses. Staff does not see any compelling reason to recommend approval, considering that the property is surrounded by large parcels of land zoned A1 suburban. Note that as shown in the attached survey, the purpose of the request is to create a 0.54 acre parcel and a 1.65 acre parcel, as it is shown on, as I said, on the attached survey. At this time, staff would like to recommend denial.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Your name and address, please.
Joy Barron, 1445 Seacoast Road, Folsom, Louisiana.
Okay.
70437.
And you're requesting a zoning change?
Yes, just for inheritance-wise, due to some health problems I'm having. I want to do this for my two daughters so that they don't have to deal with this, at any point.
Oh, so you intend on giving it to your children?
Yes, I'm going to will it to them. But due to health problems, I want to be able to get this done for them.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any more discussion on this case? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Willie.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Barron, she's correct. She's looking to do this for her children, and it is appropriate in that location. I move for approval.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Willie. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, I'll make a motion to second that.
I have a second by Commissioner Casabon with a motion to approve by Commissioner Willie. Any more discussion? If not, please vote.
Mr. Doherty, that motion to approve has passed.
Motion to approve has passed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Case number 4. 2019-1373 ZC, the existing zoning is A1. The proposed zoning is A1 with a manufactured housing overlay. And it comprises 8 acres. Petitioner is Taylor McGeeus. The owner is August Joseph Antonia D. Cantazaro. Location is on the east side of Press Sharp Road, north of Otis Sharp Road, Section 51, Township 5 South, Range 12 East, Ward 2, District 6, Council District 6. Staff?
Staff recommends that a request for a manufactured housing overlay be approved.
Okay. Is there somebody here to represent? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Tanya Catanzaro. My address is 84024 Press Sharp Road. I'm originally from Kenner. I lived in a subdivision. 5 mile radius is as far as we basically went when I was growing up. Met my husband. He lived in Mandeville at the time. We married in 96. In 96, crossing the lake, coming to Mandeville, it was like country to me. I was hoping he wasn't a serial killer when I met him because I was going in the middle of nowhere. But the area grew. We resided in Mandeville till 2009. We bought the acreage in Bush, which is actually St. Tammany Parish is where we're located. Love it. Secluded. We are behind 4 acres. So to get to our 8 acres, we go down a shared road, opens up. We have about 3 acres, I would say, cleared. Currently, we have a modular home that the zoning required at that time for us to put on. You know, they are more expensive than the manufactured. The specs are the same as a modular and a manufactured. It just the stamp saying it's a modular home. I have two boys, both which have moved to Lake Charles in 2012. One of them married, has a 4-year-old. His wife is now expecting another, has moved home. He is currently hired at the correctional unit in Covington. He is working to become a sheriff with the sheriff's department. So he's getting grounded in a nice career. We are wanting or hoping that we can get the property change zoned to a manufactured home to allow them to utilize this area. We love it, open space. My 4-year-old is just going, grandson is just gone wild playing and running in this area. He's not had that before, living in an apartment in Lake Charles. So we're requesting it to be rezoned to allow manufactured housing so my children can enjoy the property that we have. It's a shame for it to go to waste if we can't allow them to come and to live there. And also I have an 88-year-old mother who lives in Kenner in the same house I was raised in. And I'm trying to get her on this side. So by having her grandchild and great-grandchildren living there, it will allow her to be with me, her daughter, and visit with them as well. And that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience want to speak in favor of the zoning change or against? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Lauren. Commissioner Casabon.
Yes, I'll second the motion. It is a beautiful area.
I have a second by Commissioner Casabon. Commissioner Doherty. Oh, sorry. Oh, Commissioner Doherty, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I was.
Go ahead. You can speak. Go ahead. You can speak.
Okay. On the,
Just speak up loud.
yes, on the property, we have an aerial here, and I guess what I'm seeing is your modular home.
Ma'am, can you please come up?
Yes. Seeing your modular home, and you intend to put 1 or 2 manufactured homes?
No, just one.
Just one?
Mm-hmm. There's an area on the south side of the property. That area, before we could put the modular home originally, it was not a real large flat area. So we had to get a dozer company to come out, and they actually had to scrape and make us a plateau to put the modular set to. So there's an area on the south side that we kind of have to watch the way the land is falling and kind of put it to where it's going to use less fill to have a nice leveled area. And there is a section there that would be nice for it. They're looking at a double wide, the 3280 long. We're not sure how long it's going to take them to get the down payment. Of course, my son just started working, has another baby on the way, so they are residing with us until they can get financial stable to go ahead and purchase that and get it located on the property.
Okay, and your intent, your husband's intent is to sell a portion of this to?
Well, that would be the next question on what we have to do if we have to kind of will it or sell it to them for maybe an acre and a half that they can call their own, then that might be a possibility. Right now, we would just like to keep it as ours. And the reason for a manufactured home is that if they decide in the future that, hey, we want to live more into town or be closer, we're financial capable now to buy something of our own, that it would be a movable item to take it off because I want that property to stay in our family.
They one single family, right?
You're asking me a question, sir?
One single family, right?
A1, it's single family, right? Yes. It's minimum lot size of 5 acres.
Pardon?
Minimum lot size of 5 acres. At this time, it could not be subdivided.
I guess the question
There's a house on the property?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I guess the manufactured home is gonna have to be under 1,000 square feet.
You can't have two manufactured homes on the same property
Okay.
unless you have A1 zoning, and A1 zoning will allow a guest house up to 1,000 square feet. Which means is that double wide.
80 by 32 is, what, 2,400? About 2,400 square feet.
Okay, because they have two children come, one and another one on the way.
Martha, based on, there seems to be a little bit of confusion in what they want to do. It might be
Yeah.
better to postpone this 1 month, let her get with Helen and come up with maybe a minor subdivision and decide whether or not she really does want to sell it to her.
Can we sell them like an acre or an acre? You can't do that?
No.
You would have
Yeah,
to
the-
go through the zoning change process and request for the zoning, the A1 zoning to be changed to a different zoning that will allow.
Yeah, let's go ahead. You know, the best thing for you to do, obviously, if you want to do that and go ahead and sell your son 1 acre, is you're going to have to go ahead and change a portion of your property to A2, okay? To do that, you have to get with Helen, ask for a rezoning change before you ask for this.
Gotcha, okay.
Yes. Martha?
Yes, Helen, if it's a minor, if they decide to do this 8 acres as a minor subdivision where they can have it divided into lots, how many, the minor subdivision has to be 20 acres? Or how do we do?
This is an 8-acre parcel. The minimum lot size under A1 is 5 acres. This parcel cannot be re-subdivided at this time unless if they.
In a minor subdivision?
No, it cannot be subdivided. The minimum lot size under A1 is 5 acres.
We'd have to rezone it, and that'd leave her through the 3 acres. Okay, all right. I know.
It's still not gonna change her ability to put but ultimately, that's what she wants to do. This is her petition.
Can she put another modular home on this 8 acres?
As long as it's under 1,000 square feet.
Oh, okay. But you need it larger.
But you can have it, that whole 8 acres rezoned.
Correct, but I was trying to avoid, that if she didn't want to do that at this time.
I think the situation is this: if you want to be in total compliance as of today, you have a manufactured housing out there on the 8 acres, so we can grant you A1 with the manufactured housing overlay, but you can't put anything bigger than 1,000 square foot. Okay. So we could vote on this, then you'd have to come back and ask for a rezoning, but that doesn't guarantee you'll get the rezoning.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I wish these microphones would work. This thing
I know,
Go ahead.
I know.
I don't have
The
control.
only issue with doing that, and I'm gonna stand corrected for a moment.
Go ahead. Hit
We
research.
just postponed this for a month. If we absolutely approve it tonight, and she has to come back and go through the zoning process again, that's another fee, is it not?
Correct.
But if we postpone it tonight, can't she amend it
But
without having additional fees?
it would have to be
I
re-advertised.
understand it would have to be re-advertised, but can she amend her original application without having to pay any additional monies?
She would have to pay the advertising fees.
But that would be
and
it.
we will not be able to hear the case until the month of June, so it would have to be postponed for 2 months.
All right.
That would be fine.
I think the motion to postpone, did someone make a motion already?
I'd second it.
I think that's probably appropriate, and I'm sorry that I
Okay.
tried to go ahead and move forward, but I think that's a good move.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
Do we have someone making a motion to postpone?
I think it's happened already.
Oh, did we?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we did.
We had a motion to approve on the floor with a second.
Well, who made the motion to approve?
The motion was by Commissioner Lauren.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Commissioner Lauren withdraws his motion.
Who was the second?
Motion to postpone.
I'll put a motion on the floor to postpone.
I have a motion to postpone by Commissioner Doherty.
Second.
Do I have a second by Commissioner Willie? Any more discussion?
Sorry for the confusion.
And this is a motion to postpone till
June.
2 months? Is that right? 2 months. Please vote. This is a motion to postpone to June. Yeah, please get with Helen. She'll help you out with your situation.
Mr. Baggett?
Yes.
Yeah, trying to make it as easy as possible, because it's confusing up here.
Yes.
Mr. Baggett and Mr. Doherty have to vote. Doherty.
Oh, Commissioner, thank you. Everybody voted.
The motion to postpone has passed.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a motion to postpone. Let's see, the next case. Case number 6, 2019-1380 ZC, existing zoning's A2, proposed zoning's A2 with a manufacturing housing overlay. It's 3.318 acres. The petitioner and owner is Christy Olivia. The location is on the south side of Main Street, west of Transmitter Road, east of Village Streets, Section 33, Township 8 South, Range 13 East, Ward 7, District 7, Council District 7. Staff, comments, please?
Staff would like to recommend approval of the request for a manufactured housing overlay.
Okay. Do we have the petitioner here? Yes, ma'am. And you are?
Hi, I'm Christy Oliva. I live at 204 William Drive, Slidell, Louisiana, 70458.
And you're just asking for a manufactured
Yes, sir.
housing
There's already
overlay
an
on property.
abandoned mobile home there, and it's not grandfathered in, so I'd like to be able to have a mobile home overlay.
Are you going to remove the abandoned home and put a new one on there? Is that what you're going to do?
I would actually like to remodel this one.
Okay. All right. Right. Just
Well,
one.
it's 3.3 acres, and from my understanding is that you can have a mobile home per acre. I'd like to put a mother-in-law suite on the property, a mobile home that I purchased that is 750 square feet.
That's fine.
Yes, sir.
That's fine.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Is anyone in the audience against this? I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Randolph. Commissioner Baggert. I have a second by Commissioner Baggert. Any more discussion? If not, please vote.
Martha? Okay. The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. Motion to approve passed. Item 7, 2019-1382 ZC, existing zoning's A4, single family. Proposed zoning is I1, 1.65 acres. Petitioner is Jones Fuzwell, Paul J. Marone, and the owner is Deltas Mitchell. Its location of the parcel is on the west side of Highway 11, on the south side of A Avenue, on the north side of Amos Street, and on the east side of North 7th Street, Square 69, Alton Subdivision, Section 26, Township 8 South, Range 14 East, Ward 8, District 14, and Council District 14. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area along Highway 11 to be developed with commercial uses. The site is currently being used as an outdoor storage yard, and the objective of the request is to bring the property in compliance with the appropriate zoning. At this time, staff would like to recommend approval.
Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the commission, Paul Marone again, this time on behalf of Mr. Mitchell, the owner of the property. As Ms. Lambert just noted, the request before you this evening is really to bring the existing zoning of the property into conformity with what the historical and present use of the property has been. For decades, probably 20 to 30 years, the Mitchell family have owned this property. The Mitchell family run a carnival business, so the rides that you see at the Parish Fair, some of the church fairs around, these are rides that are owned and operated and maintained by the Mitchell family, and they work out of this area on Highway 11. One of the issues that has arisen in the area is that these uses, though they are not consistent with the zoning, they are grandfathered in because they've been there for so long. They predated the zoning of the property. That led to several discussions between myself and Councilman T.J. Smith about the property. Mr. Smith has always expressed some concern about having that type of equipment and some of that use so visible from Highway 11. And I have worked with him and with Mr. Mitchell over the years to try to improve some of the aesthetics of the property, but we were limited in that we really couldn't make any tangible improvements to the property because of the zoning. And about 2 years ago, I approached Mr. Smith about it, and initially he was reluctant to consider the zoning, but as we talked more, it became clear to both of us that really what we had, in our opinions at that time, was an opportunity to try to find a win-win. He had some things that he very much wanted to see happen on that property. My client very much wanted the ability to construct a building on that property to house some of this equipment, to get it out of the weather, to get it out of the view of the public. And with that as our springboard, we met probably 5 or 6 different times. We have worked out a very detailed agreement that will be memorialized in a deed restriction that would allow the construction of the building, but it would also address some of Mr. Smith's concern, like perimeter fencing, very high perimeter fencing that helped block the view of what the property is being used for, landscaping, where the building will be situated, how the facade will look, a myriad of issues that we've worked on over this 2-year period. It culminated in an agreement that he would be supportive of our request and that before the final ordinance, if you approve it, before the final ordinance goes to him for approval, we would have in place the deed restriction that I mentioned that memorialized all of these negotiated items that he was so interested in. And it is our belief that after a very long and somewhat arduous process, a number of meetings, a lot of discussions, that we have come to a point where we both feel like at the end of the day, if this zoning is granted, if these improvements are made, and if the building is constructed and the deed restriction put in place, that not only will Mr. Mitchell be in a better position, but also Mr. Smith, the other members of the Alton community will be in a better position. So with that as a backdrop, we would respectfully request your approval of the I-1 zoning to bring the zoning into consistency and compatibility with the long-standing historical and present use of the property. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience want to speak in favor of this zoning change or against this zoning change? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Just for those who are not very familiar with the Highway 11 North Corridor area, it has been under very, very deep scrutiny as well as economic developmental management to improve and enhance the Highway 11 North area. Granted, it's an old area because you know how old Highway 11 is, but it is an area that is on the site for economic development and be a major corridor with Interstate 12 and some of the other major tributaries as well. There must be emphasis at this point that the effort is in place. Development has started. We've had some very beautiful areas coming up subsequent to Johnny Smith's Industrial Park. We have some nice businesses, buildings coming up, and this area in particular I'm very familiar with. Go way back to when it used to be the Pine Hill Inn there some years ago. Some of y'all may remember that. But it's been an area that we were very concerned about, and I appreciate Mr. Marone meeting with Councilman Smith and getting with the owner, Mr. Deltas, with trying to improve and update, bring up to date the aesthetics of that area. And I do have a few questions though, Paul, if you don't mind. And I want to say this, I'm not going to intermingle planning with zoning. Okay, so Mr. Richard, you won't have to shut me down, Sergeant at on. But these are basically particular questions as it relates to the piece of property as it is now and the plans for it. And maybe this is something that you and Councilman Smith have already spoken about. But it's the future, the property now, he said that he's planning on improving it to continue his operation, first of all, to bring it into compliance.
Correct.
And to continue his operation as it is.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Will there be any type of welding or manufacturing?
No.
Other than working on what's already there?
No. That's a very good question. And so the answer to that is no. There will be no manufacturing. There is light welding to repair the existing equipment, but there will be no manufacturing. And that's a good point that perhaps I should have said. I think I mentioned one of the components of the deed restriction is that Mr. Smith and I went through every permitted use in I-1 and basically have struck everything under I-1 that Mr. Mitchell is not currently doing to make sure that it doesn't open the door to an expanded use of the property. Manufacturing is allowed under I-1, but it has been negotiated out and will be restricted under the deed restriction.
Perfect. Thank you. The second question is there any future plan for buildings, any type of building or storage of some of these, because some of that equipment is huge.
Right. Right.
I don't know how tall or what type of building would be constructed on this site in order to accommodate protecting or keeping that type of equipment under a roof.
Yes, good point, and I would answer that in two parts. There is a plan on the northern end of the square. There will be a building constructed that will be able to house some of the equipment, that it will be able to be pulled under. It'll be a three-sided building, so it'll be solid on Highway 11, solid to the north, and solid to the west, open on the south side so that you can pull it under. One of Mr. Smith's concern was the height of that building because of the size of some of the equipment that is used there. And so part of the deed restriction is a restriction on the height. The height of the building will not exceed 35 feet. So that will not allow some of the larger equipment to get in there. So in addition to the building, which will allow some to get out of the weather and can be maintained and out of view, there will also be large fencing, perimeter fencing constructed, so that you'll still be able to see some of the equipment above that fence, but it will be fenced in its entirety. The height of that fence, we're working with Mr. Fontenot to determine how high we can have it. There was a talk about 8 feet, perhaps even 10 feet. Mr. Mitchell is open to that, subject to parish regulation, if that's allowed.
And last, if you don't mind, will there be any storage facilities accommodated or housed on the property?
When you say storage facilities,
You know, like these, what y'all call, what they call these little stackable
yes,
buildings?
yeah, okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And the reason why I ask that is because if you go down Brown Village Road, just before you get to the auction center, there's a small space of property where these buildings go as far as heaven almost.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's not a beautiful sight at all.
That-
And that's before our time, but I mean.
That particular property was the subject of a lot of discussion with Mr. Smith, because he was very concerned about that very issue. And about that property and not wanting this property to turn into that. There is no plan to stack those module or cargo holders. Containers, yes, containers is the word we're looking for. There is no plan to do that, and we've included in the deed restriction a limitation on that because of that very property that caused the concern.
Okay. I said last question, and Mr. Chair, you don't mind?
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. And this may be a staff question, but Mr. Moran, you may be able to address it as it relates to if there's a future building. 7th Street, which is the parallel street west of Highway 11
Yes.
north, okay? Will the building meet the setback requirements to 7th Street and the street north of the property? I think it is Avenue A or
Yes.
A Avenue?
Yes.
Okay.
We will have to meet all of the setbacks,
With the
front, rear,
buffer?
and side. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we have done a layout to ensure that we can do that, and we're confident that we can meet those setbacks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Marone. And with that, with those answered, detailed, professional questions in mind, I want to move to approve from A4 to I1
Okay.
with the deed restriction.
Well, we don't.
Well, we don't do that.
We
Okay.
don't.
All right.
We have a motion to approve the zoning change from A4 to I1 by Commissioner Randolph with some slight planning information. Commissioner Backert.
Off mic on. I'm gonna second it, and I think everything that Mr. Morone has said is gonna be an improvement to the area. Because I'm very familiar with the Mitchells and the property, and, you know, if you can fence all that equipment off, and it'll be a great improvement.
I have a second by Commissioner Backert. Commissioner Lauren.
I have one question, Paul. I like the plan, I like the work that you all have put into it. But my question is, if we approve it tonight, what happens if the deed restriction doesn't get done?
Good question. Well, tonight, of course, any approval that you might grant would be a recommendation to the council. And ultimately, the council will have to pass an ordinance to finalize the zoning. So ultimately, Mr. Smith holds that until such time as I can present him with the deed restriction. What he and I have discussed is that the ordinance would be introduced, if approved tonight, at their next available council meeting. It would then lay over. During that layover period, I would have the opportunity to complete drafting, because it's almost done now, have it executed, present it to him, and then have it recorded. So by the time he comes to the council meeting to pass that ordinance, he's got the signed deed restriction in his hand.
Okay, thank you.
Legal would like to discuss.
Just a reminder to everyone, you should not be considering a deed restriction. You need to be considering whether this is appropriate as zoned or not. The deed restriction is between private landowners.
Commissioner Casbon.
Yes, this is true. We do not, but we do have it on record that they have promised to do that, but that's not why we rezone it. This has got to be a better zoning. I passed by there the other day, and I did not realize. I knew that the stuff was there, but what bothered me was I saw children playing, around and in the area, and that was my thought, that this needed to be fenced off. So any improvement to that area, it will help. And I concur with the motion.
Commissioner Randolph.
Just want to applaud Mr. Marone and Councilman Smith, along with the landowners, the petitioners, to continue the good work, because this will not, and I understand, this will not be Highway 21. This will not be the beautiful areas of Highway 190, but it will be a very nice corridor to be considered and appreciated. Thank you.
Any more discussion? If not, I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Randolph with a second by Commissioner Baggert. Please vote. This is the zoning change from A4 to I1.
The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. Case 9, major amendment, 2016-295-ZC, major amendment to the PUD, Planned Unit Development Overlay. It's 104.17 acres. Petitioner is Kelly McHugh. The owner is Brentwood Land Development, LLC. Its location is on the north side of Sharp Road, west of Westwood Drive, Section 39, Township 7 South, Range 11 East, Ward 4, District 5, Council District 5. Staff?
The site is located on the north side of Sharp Road, east of Westwood Drive, and approved to be developed as a 102-lot residential subdivision. The request consists of an amendment of previously approved setback, and you can see the proposed changes here in the chart that I put together on your staff report. At this time, staff would like to recommend approval of the request for major amendment to the PUD.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Good evening, Chairman and Honorable Council, Commission. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. I represent the owner and developer of Brentwood Subdivision. And as you may remember, I've appeared with you before in the past as it relates to both procuring zoning for this tract and also subdivision approval. Tonight we come to you with one request, and that is for the adjustment of certain setbacks as it relates to the three types of lots that we have in the development. I've given you an exhibit which hopefully will explain graphically the requests that we've made. These requests constitute a major amendment to the PUD, but I think there's some things that I'd like to start with so that you'll know what this case is not about. This case does not increase the density of the PUD. It is still fixed at 102 units. This case does not change the type of lots, meaning that they're all residential and essentially they're all the same in size. Perhaps very importantly, this amendment does not request any change in the no-cut buffer or any of the special conditions that were created as it relates to the perimeter of the subdivision to provide protection to adjoining landowners. In particular, this request does not create any situation where any structure will be any closer to the perimeter of the subdivision. Let me repeat that. The setback request does not allow any situation where any building, any house, any structure will be any closer to the perimeter of the subdivision. And lastly, what do these setback requests accomplish and why are they being asked? We have consulted with the builders that are going to buy the lots, and they believe that this series of setbacks that we request, and I'm going to go through them in detail in a minute, will allow them to build better homes, bigger homes, homes with more value, which they think will be more marketable, will be more compatible, not within the subdivision alone, but also more compatible with the many fines homes that we have in the many fine subdivisions in the Sharp Road corridor. I'd now like to take just a minute and let's make sure that we understand the request in particular. You may want to look at the grid that you see on page 1 of the zoning staff report. Again, you may also want to take a look at the plat that you have been provided for the PUD, I should say the PUD plan, and I will try to identify, firstly, with regard to the 90-foot lots. Those are the larger lots to the left, lower left of the subdivision near the entrance. You'll see that in that instance, the current front setback is 30 feet. The request is that the setback be 25 feet. So obviously, we would be pulling the potential house 5 feet closer to the street. The second category are the single-family homes that are sort of in the middle, if you will. There's only, I think, 17 of those. Those are the 65 to 75-foot width lots. And in that instance, we're asking for 2 adjustments. Again, the front setback, currently 25 feet, would become 20 feet. That pulls the structures 5 feet closer to the street. The side setback being reduced from 7.5 feet to 5 feet. Lastly, the garden homes, the brown color, at least on my copy, if not, probably a darker color on the copy you have, which is sort of in the center to the easterly side of the subdivision. Those are, of course, the structures that are nearest Victorian Oaks and also abut the church school property as well. That change is to allow the building envelope for the garden homes to be 70 feet in depth. And that's where hopefully the sketch I provided this evening gives you some clarification. And if you'll take a look at that sketch, you will see that on the left side, we show the existing PUD plan with a 65-foot deep envelope for the garden homes. And we show that our request, being 70 feet in depth, again results in the building envelope being 5 feet closer, in this case, to the proposed road, Antioch Drive. We also wanted to graphically show that to the rear of these garden home envelopes that would be nearest the perimeter of the subdivision, we still maintain the same 25-foot no-cut. There's a 10-foot private drainage servitude, another 15 feet, but we still maintain that 50-foot rear setback, which we committed to when this PUD was approved. And in this illustration, there's actually an additional 10 feet that we would propose from the 50-foot setback to the beginning of the envelope. And of course, the envelope doesn't necessarily mean that the structure is going to touch the edge of the envelope, but it certainly could. So I'm not trying to be too laborious, but I know that there's some residents from Sharp Road that are here this evening that have an interest in the case, and for good reason. I wanted to make sure that not only you as a commission, but they as interested citizens know what we're asking for. With that having been said, we respectfully request that you approve our request for major amendment to the PUD to adjust these setbacks as indicated. At the appropriate time, if any of you have questions, I will be glad to address them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who want to speak against this case? Or any comments? Come on up. Name and address, please.
Dan Shapiro, 123 Blue Heron Drive, Mandeville. So 2 questions that I have. One is, Mr. Shane gave us this, and we appreciate that. We didn't see everything else. We just want to make sure that it says major amendment, that all that is the envelope is changing toward the street. The second question is, when we were going through, the planning with Mr. Shane and Mr. McHugh, one of the issues was drainage. And the question is that since these will be taking up more of the lawns and the green space, has that been taken into consideration, the pond and the drainage? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shane, would you like to? Anybody else like to speak in the public? If not, Mr. Shane, would you like to answer the gentleman's questions?
With regard to the 2 comments, the major amendment, again, is only as it relates to the setbacks. So I think that although Mr. Shapiro felt comfortable with the answer is as you believed it to be. It's classified as major because it's not something that the staff can consider administratively. The drainage, I doubt, has been looked at again, but I don't think it's necessary in that changing the setback does not necessarily change the hydrology as it relates to this subdivision, and in particular the structures. What it's going to provide is flexibility as it relates to structures and where they can be positioned. Whether or not there'll actually be more lot coverage, if you will, I guess remains to be seen, but my guess would be that if there is more structure, if you will, more lot coverage, structure, maybe coverage would be a better choice of words, it would be a de minimis impact. I will say this, if it pleases the commission, my engineer will take a look at those calculations and certainly communicate with the parish engineer, because the last thing we want to do is create a drainage problem for our neighbors, but quite frankly, a drainage problem for ourselves. So, I mean, if as a result of adjusting these setbacks creates some drainage issue, it would be appropriate for us to address that. So that's a commitment, if you will, not a part of the major amendment, but certainly something that I'll do.
Thank you, Mr. Shane, for that info. Any more additional comments? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Baggett.
Yeah, I'll move for adoption. I'm looking at this PUD, and when you look at the tract of land, it's like 75% land and very little housing, which I would think would create no drainage problem.
Yeah, a lot of green space. Yep. So I got a motion to approve by Commissioner Baggett. Commissioner Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will second that, and I also want to just comment, Mr. Shane, that this whole tract here is going to drain into Bayou Tet Lures. Is that correct?
I may stand corrected, but I believe that there's a small portion of this property that does drain to Sharp Road, the southwesterly portion. The great majority of the property does drain and will be taken from the pond to Tet Lures. But no, there is some drainage near the entranceway.
Okay. So I guess, you know, can the drainage on Sharp Road handle that additional?
Well, the drainage plan that was approved by you as the planning commission, and which is being constructed at present, does include the necessary improvements to make sure that the water can be handled. So we're not introducing water to Sharp Road for the first time as a result of this setback change.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
a clear way of stating.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Baggett and a second by Commissioner Doherty. Is that correct? Any more discussion? If not, please vote.
The motion to approve has passed.
Thank you. Any old business? Any new business? We have,
I might have missed it, but I don't think we saw no.
okay. Okay.
It can, it says begin voting. and
Yes.
Vote first.
Please come up and address yourself. Is this under new business or old business?
I think it's new and old.
Okay.
My name's Ken Ress, 306 Lakeshore Drive, Mandeville. Haven't been in here for a while. We spent a lot of time with you folks about a year and a half, 2 years ago. We got to meet y'all pretty regularly. I just want to comment, the mood in this room is considerably different than it was when we came before. I appreciate the sound of the room, the feel of the room. We commented that it felt like a different operation in here, whatever the reason may be. But your ability to allow people time the way you did and the conversations that occurred between everybody is the way we always envisioned it should be. I thought it was a great improvement over what we saw back in the past. So I want to thank you for that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So no more old business and no new business? We have a motion to adjourn? What's that? Oh, I got Casabon.